Welcome, everyone. This is the Wednesday edition, January 26, 2022 of the NBA Triple Double Show, powered by the Predictive Playbook and presented to you by SportsMemo TV. As usual, I'm your host, and I'm joined by my good friend and professional sports bettor, Ronald Cabang. And we're going to try to have you fully covered. We're going to look at a threesome of NBA games on the NBA card for Wednesday night. And without further ado, we're going to get right at it. The first game we're going to be looking at here is in the early part of the card, and that is the Toronto Raptors visiting the Chicago Bulls. This is at the United Center in Chicago, 8 o'clock scheduled tip-off. The Bulls are 29-17. They're 26-19-1 against the number. Toronto Raptors are one game over 500, trying to stay in playoff contention status. They're 25-20 against the number, 25-20 over under. Home team for the Bulls when they're at home at the United Center, 16-6, and as a favorite, they're an outstanding 23-7. Line for this game, Ronald, is the Bulls -4 with a total of 218.5. Any initial thoughts in this matchup for a possible best bet?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the side here. You can kind of say the Bulls have been struggling as of late. They lost 7 of the last 10 games, and it mainly has to do with their roster situation. You know, key guys have been in and out of the lineup the last few weeks, but I think tonight they're going to have Vucevic, Levine, and DeRozan back together tonight. They're going to be missing Ball and Caruso though. Those two guys are they're two key defensive guys that that kind of been their key guys of taking care of perimeter, their opponent's offensive scorers, and they're gonna have the rest advantage over the Raptors tonight too though. And a couple of the Raptors starters hit 35 plus minutes played yesterday. So you could see some possible tired legs on the Raptors side. A couple of trends on the Bulls side. They're 8-2 against the spread against opponents on the second half of back-to-back games. They're also 7-1 against the spread as home favorites of 4 points or more against Eastern Conference teams. I think that the line opened at 4.5, and it has moved down to 4. So that's something to monitor there with that trend. On the Raptors side, they just played the Hornets yesterday, where they initially were favored, then the line flipped, and eventually they won outright as I think 1.5 point dogs. And as I mentioned, they had a couple guys that played 35 plus minutes, including 39 from Siakam. But Van Vliet and Scotty Barnes were out yesterday, so the status of those two guys are pretty important for today's game. But they've actually been strong in second half of back-to-back games this season. They're 5-2 straight up and 6-1 against the spread in those situations. But for me, I have a strong lean on the Bulls here, along with some of their key guys getting back together and the rest advantage. I feel like they have the edge in this game on a short line. But I will wait for the status of Van Vliet and Scotty Barnes before I place any bets on this one.
Yeah, I think that is the rule of thumb, Ronald, with the way the injuries and COVID seems to be waning here, which is a very good thing. But you still have to wait and see as close to the tip-off as possible to get all the information you need. That's great advice for the people listening out there in the chat room and elsewhere. I'm a little leery with the Bulls because they're only 4.5. It opened at 4. There's some rogue 4.5s right now, but it has been really static, meaning it hasn't moved a bit.
Yeah.
And that's in the face of Toronto bettors who are accounting for 68% of the tickets and 65% of the money, and the line hasn't moved, which then flips my thinking into the lean that you have on the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I both love the Bulls preseason. We have that totals bet, I believe, is what, 42.5?
Yeah.
41.5. It's right in that area. I'd have to go look at the ticket, but
I think it was 42.5.
I think you're right. And that, unless something really drastic happens, something along the lines of those NFL games we saw last weekend, I think Chicago will easily be closer to 50 wins than they will 40 down the stretch here. But it does seem like like they're coming out of the valley now. They've gone through this stretch where things, like you said, they've lost 7 of the last 10. They've also not covered the spread in 7 of the 10. And I think the market may be, leaning towards the cheap side here at 4 points. Against Toronto, it just seems like it's almost too good to be true. So let's move on to the next game here. And our next game is the Sacramento Kings visiting the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are 12th in the Eastern Conference, Ronald. They've won 3 in a row, but they're still 4 games under 500 at 21 and 25. 19 and 27 against the number. Over under 25-21 for the year. The Kings, they are what we thought they are. They're 18 and 31. It's another dismal season for them, but they seem to be a little bit more competitive, and they seem to be the type of team you just don't want to get backdoored on any spread either. Mm-hmm. They're 21 and 28 against the number, and even 24 and 24 on the over/under. 6 and 15 on the road, and as an underdog, 11 and 21. I'm thinking the under here, and I have an in-game betting strategy that I want to present in quick fashion. Now, this is I love doing this because this comes back from my Wall Street days as an institutional trader, and humbly said, I've been successful in doing this. And what we have here is a situation where the total is 233.5, so it's pretty high. And with a team like Sacramento who likes to run, play fast, but sometimes they don't score. And that's what I'm trying to avoid here. So what I'm recommending, if you're a $100 per game bettor, you would take $50 of that, or 50% pre-flop, and bet the over at 233.5 or whatever the line is currently at your book. And then in game, let's look at the possibility that the game doesn't get out to a fast start. Look for 228.5, 225.5 in the first quarter only. And here's why I'm saying the first quarter only, is that the Hawks, here, let me get back to this note here, Ronald. Let's see. Okay, the Hawks and Kings rank 15th in the NBA, averaging 27.9 points per first quarter. And the Kings are 22nd in the NBA, averaging 26.8. So you can see that both these teams rank in the lower half of scoring, although they are part of the highest scoring teams in the NBA, especially the Hawks of late. They're averaging 117 per game. But both teams don't start out very well. And that is where the opportunity is. Now we move to the second quarter. And let's see, the second quarter totals here. The Hawks are the top scoring third quarter team in the association, averaging 29.4 points, and ranked third, averaging 28.7 points in the second quarter. Moreover, the Kings ranked 24th, allowing an average of 28.7 points in the second quarter, and 29th, allowing an average of 29.1 points in the third quarter. So the scoring keeps going up and up and up in the fourth quarter, and this matchup is no different. So I'm willing to follow that trend, and I probably will play it that way, Ronald, where I'll just put half down on the over, see how that first quarter goes, and if I can nail that 228.5 and 225.5, I know I have matchups in second, third, and fourth quarter that are quite favorable for that over to possibly be a winning ticket. You have any rebuttals or comments about that in-game betting?
Yeah. So did you say you were doing the over or the under? Sorry,
the over.
The over. Okay. Yeah. I get it because they score, they do score a lot of points, but I looked up I was looking into this game yesterday as well, especially after the Kings lost by like 40 points, right? So I was looking at both the side and the total in these types of situations here, and what I came up with was when teams who have lost 40 or more points in their previous game, they're actually 5-1 against the spread in the following game. So that kind of, I know that it's hard to back a team that just lost by 40 points, but at this point this season, 5-1 is a pretty good percentage there, to back the Kings, and you're getting more points as as much as the public is backing the Hawks here, you could probably get double digits closer to tip off. And most guys are game time decision here as well. So it's going to be tough to even know where that line ends. We don't know if Fox is going to play. We don't know if Bogdanovich or Hunter will play on the Hawks side. But a couple of things that I also noticed were a couple of trends on the under. Kings 7-2 to the under when they play with no rest. So second game of back-to-back games, they're 7-2 to the under in those situations. And the Hawks are 4-1 to the under at home with 2 days of rest or more. So those are a couple of things to as far as looking at the under here. But I totally get where you're going with the over and how these guys score. So this one is a wash for me in my opinion.
Yeah, I like your points. I definitely like your points, and I'll make sure I make a comment in the YouTube channel there to make sure if anybody is tailing this, what'll be going on. I have a full-blown article over at sportsmemo.com in the news section. Just click on Sports Memo News at the top of the page, and it'll take you right to this full-blown article on the in-game betting as I just described it. And then you have it in written content. Let's move on to the last game we have here, and this is the Phoenix Suns Utah Jazz, and this is immediate revenge for the Utah Jazz, who have fallen literally almost off the cliff, Ronald. I don't know how to describe it. They're 2-8 straight up, 2-8 against the number. Just not playing very well. I think they played much better than the most recent 9 games in the loss to Phoenix, which was 115-109. Phoenix did not cover as a home favorite of 12 points. Do you see any opportunities initially in this matchup?
Yeah, I do. I do like the Suns in this matchup here. I know they're missing a lot of key guys here, but I think on the Jazz side, not having Rudy Gobert is actually more important than the cumulative players that are out for the Suns. The Jazz are 1-5 straight up without Rudy Gobert in the lineup, and they're also 8-16 against the spread at home. And then the Suns, they're 7-3 against the spread as away favorites against Western Conference teams, 6-3 against the spread on the road against teams with a winning record. To me, I think most of the signs are pointing towards the Suns. I know a couple of key guys are out for the Suns though. I just feel like Gobert is just too much of a key player for this Jazz team. Sort of like how Draymond is with the Warriors. Their offense doesn't run well. Their defense kind of suffers a little bit. It's the same thing with the Jazz here and Rudy Gobert, and so that's why, to me, I would lean the Suns.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way as well. And you put a thought in my head. Like a lot of times when we have these superstars out of the lineup, I tend to go towards the more fundamental part of handicapping. In other words, I won't look at the analytical metrics, the efficiencies as much. And I like to look at who's on the bench or who are the starters that can step up and fill the void left by the starter who's not playing. We see that all the time with the Nets and that chaos with Kyrie Irving only playing road games, and KD's now probably not going to return till late February. It leaves Harden. And I find myself looking more at the fundamentals with Nets games especially than any other team out there. But I'm just curious to know how you if you do the same thing or if you do something a little different when it's like this where the analytics may not mean as much.
Yeah, you definitely need to understand the game and how the players affect the game for each team. When key players are out like this, like I mentioned, like how much Rudy Gobert means to this Jazz team. Those are things you need to be aware of, right? Even if Ayton is out for the Suns and as well as McGee, like those two key guys, even without them, their offensive and defensive rating doesn't adjust as much as it does for the Jazz when Gobert is out. So even when looking at names and trends and statistics like that, you also gotta you know understand how the backups affect the game. And I think just through experience, that's kind of something that you get to understand overall in sports betting.
I agree 100%. And I just saw here Bogdanovich was has a right knee contusion. And if you mentioned this, I apologize if I'm repeating our injuries here, but it's up in the air right now if he will face the Suns tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you see the line with that kind of news, I think that's if you like the Suns, as we're leaning towards the Suns, I think you want to bet them now
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to later, because if he doesn't play, then I don't think that's baked into the number.
Yeah.
He's listed as questionable, but I would have to think that he is going to play them if at all possible.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on his status?
So all right. So the line opened at 4.5 for the Suns, right? And it's moved down to 2.5. And I it really does to me feel like it's the number of players out for the Suns versus the quality. They have let me count this out. 7 guys out for the Suns here versus the Jazz are missing Gobert and Mitchell. And this is more like quality over quantity that you're missing here. And I think to me, people are thinking that the missing these many players is too much of an impact, and that's why they're probably putting money on the Jazz here, and that's what's moving the line. But I think Gobert and Mitchell are way more important to the Jazz than the other 7 guys are for the Suns. You still got Paul, Booker, Bridges, Cam Johnson, guys who can put up numbers on their own on that side, and you don't really have to worry about anyone down low as far as Gobert. So to me, Bogdanovich isn't as big of a deal because there's still Ingles who plays a similar role, who can play a similar role. But yeah, that's my thought on that.
Yeah, good stuff, Ronald. And now it's come to the time where we can identify maybe a play that will possibly take to the window as a best bet. What we're trying to do with the show, obviously, is provide actionable information, such as the betting system, the live in-game stuff, and everything that we've discussed so far. And then at the end, like this, what we want to try to do is identify a play that we will personally put our hard-earned money behind. So with that said, do you see anything in these 3 games that really is getting your attention to bet on?
Yeah, I do. I do like the Suns here on the short line. I think the guys that they have available will step up and take care of this Utah team without Gobert and Mitchell. And then a strong lean to the Bulls for now. I think I do want to wait until I hear the status of Scotty Barnes and Van Vliet on the Toronto side.
And I will join you with the lean, and for all the reasons you just mentioned on the Bulls. And then I will take the over in the in-game format that I outlined, 50% now pre-flop, and then we'll look to try to get 228.5, 226.5 during the first quarter only. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to do. So, Ronald, that'll bring us to the end of our triple-double show. So we want to thank you for your time. And thank everybody out there, guys and gals, that are watching this on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You get to see me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which isn't the worst thing in the world, I guess. But have yourself a great Wednesday night in the sports betting market. And as always, remember, bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.